Well, welcome back to the Anti-War Room. I'm Tom Andrews from Win Without War, and this is part of our continuing series of meeting the members of the Win Without War family, the organizations that make up this 40-member coalition. And today I'm very pleased to introduce to everyone who watches our Anti-War Room, Bill Singford from the Unitarian Universalist Association. He's the president of the UUA.
Tom, it is very good to be here with you.
Well, thank you. And first question, Bill, right off the top. Tell us about the UUA's position on the war in Iraq and how you came to become a member of the coalition.
Sure. From the very beginning, as the war was becoming, it was clear that we were going to go to war. We took the stance based on decisions made by our General Assemblies that independent war, unilateral war, was not something that we could support. So we've been a member of the coalition since the very beginning, based on that, and continue to feel that unilateralism is the way to go.
I remember, Bill, that just before, as many watching this will remember, that just a few days before the actual invasion, we thought that as a very last resort, we would have a candlelight vigil in communities around the country. Turned out to be communities around the world, and you came down to Washington, D.C. to be part of the vigil right here. That was just a few days before that attack.
Indeed, with several hundred Unitarian Universalists. I must say that that opposition to the war and concern about what it's doing to this country is very widespread in our congregations.
Tell us a little bit about the UUA, Bill. What is the Unitarian Universalist Association, and what is Unitarian Universalism?
Unitarian Universalism, this is a speech that I give often, Tom.
Okay.
Unitarian Universalism is a faith that has deep roots in this country, but also in Europe before, which does not believe that anyone needs to believe in a particular creed in order to be a religious person. So we are religious liberals. We believe that each person is on a spiritual journey, and that journey is done best in community. So our 1,000 congregations offer that community.
So there are 1,000 congregations all across the United States?
Indeed, indeed.
And there's quite a tradition of activism among Unitarian Universalists.
Absolutely. We're a faith of deeds and not creeds. And we've always had a relationship to the world, believing that these are the only hands on earth, and that we have to use them to move toward the beloved community.
Bill, you are here in Washington now. You came down with a very specific message from a number of Unitarian Universalists. Could you tell us about why you're here and what you were doing?
Absolutely. I came down to deliver almost 14,000 petitions from individual Unitarian Universalists, asking our national leadership to end the war and end it now. Did it in partnership with John Thomas from the United Church of Christ. So in total, we delivered some 75,000 petitions to our elected leaders this morning.
We, as a coalition, were very concerned a few weeks ago when Congressman Brian Baird made the announcement that he was switching his position from being against the war to being for the war, to give, as he said, the president more time. And he did it on moral, as he said, moral grounds, that we have a moral obligation to keep our troops in Iraq. As a religious leader, Bill, how do you respond to that argument?
I think it's a central question. My point of view is that we as a nation need to be able to admit that we made a mistake by going into Iraq, and although the situation there is tragic, and we have some responsibilities, our responsibilities are not to continue to keep our troops there. They're to help Iraq be rebuilt.
Now, the organization, and I say this, I'm a Unitarian Universalist member. We have 1,000 congregations around the country, but there's also an office in Boston that you're part of, and there's a network here in Washington. There are people here in Washington. What other kind of things does the Unitarian Universalist Association do?
Well, we do many things. We do the things that all churches do. Try to care for the spiritual lives of our folks. We have a long-standing history of support for comprehensive sexuality education, for example, for our kids, and a real belief that we need to stand on the side of love rather than on the side of hate.
So you're active obviously here in Washington, in Congress. Obviously, you're a very active member of this coalition, the Win Without War coalition. Are you involved in state governments and state issues? Are you involved in those kinds of that level of activism?
In some cases. We do a pretty good job of staying involved in Massachusetts, which is where our home home base is, and
Go,
where,
go you Red Sox.
go Red Sox.
Yeah.
And when it's appropriate, we involve ourselves in other state issues.
Got it. Well, Bill was part of this coalition, and the Unitarian Universalist Association has been part of this coalition from the very, very beginning. And as I mentioned, Bill was with us in one of the many, actually thousands of vigils just before the invasion. And in fact, some of our major activities, including the virtual March on Washington and various activities, have involved Unitarian Universalists because of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Bill, as you look at where we are right now with respect to this tragedy in Iraq, and where we go forward here, what kind of messages are you getting from your members? How do they feel about this situation, and what do you think that, what degree of willingness do they have right now that we've been in this mess for so long to become even more active to try to stop this debacle from continuing?
It's, I think, probably the most important question you could ask. It's my observation and my own personal experience that Unitarian Universalists have been in a state of almost hopelessness. They felt like they voted for a change in policies. The change was not forthcoming, and they're looking for things that they can do that will make a difference. But we need to offer them some reason to be hopeful, Tom. And I'm happy to work with Win Without War to provide that.
Well, we're very grateful for your involvement, and you know, the glass is half full or half empty. There are people, literally millions of people, who have come forward in one form or another around the country to have their voices heard against this war. We're translating that not as quickly as we would like into congressional action, and to push the envelope incessantly on the Congress to stand up to the President, and of course putting pressure on the President, and of course the political candidates that are now hitting central stage, both for President and members of Congress who are running for re-election and those who are running for the first time for Congress. This really is an opportunity for us to communicate with candidates as they seek our support, and to make this a central issue in the campaign.
Absolutely, and I think there's some spiritual work that we can do together, and I think some of that work is involved in providing people an opportunity to admit that mistakes were made, and to let them know that they're not going to be chased out of the family because mistakes were made, that what we need to do now is to figure out how we can rectify the situation. So forgiveness is available, but it requires repentance.
Now, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a personal connection to the war in Iraq and the military. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Not to Iraq, but to Afghanistan. My son did serve there, and
he was in the Army? Or?
He was in the Army in the 82nd Airborne.
Yep.
And served well. He went enthusiastic and patriotic, and came back and said to me quite simply that he did not understand what we were doing there, that he did not see it having any positive effect. He's out of the Army now, and I'm frankly thankful for that.
Yeah. Well, we're thankful for that too, and we're thankful for his service, and we're thankful for your service and your willingness to be a part of this coalition, as well as the entire Unitarian Universalist Association. And if people want to learn a little bit more about the UUA, how do they do that?
Simplest thing in the world. Just go to uua.org.
UUA.org, or look on our website. You see all of our members. Look at UUA and just click on them and go right to their home base, their home site. Well, that's about all the time we have. Bill, thank you so very much.
My pleasure.
For coming on and being with us. Thank you for joining us. We'll take it from there and go on from here, and let's keep the activism rolling from the anti-war room. Thank you.